Greetings, my people. How are you? It's been a while, not so long though, because you remember we are on a journey where we are building a value system for ourselves, for our families, for our institutions, just reminding ourselves a bit of values that we inculcate in our lives as human beings. So today is that other time that we come to you and continue with this series. And today we want to talk about another value system. So as usual, my name is Catherine Eric. I am a change agent coming to you from Change Empire Center, where we are intentionally raising the future generations holistically, and we are doing this thing collectively. That's why we are able to come on this platform and just share and talk about the value systems that make us really stand out, building ourselves and also being able to build with other people as we carry everybody along. So tune in and let's get started. So today, what are we talking about? I want to talk about the value system that is called obedience. Obedience. And obedience is not something that we really don't know, but we do it oftenly. And sometimes we don't key into it, or maybe just pay attention to it. So, obedience is basically the ability to be able to follow through set rules, regulations, principles, policies that have been put in place to just allow us to be able to function within a period of time, and also have to be able to function together as a team. We are able to own whatever it is that we are dealing with. We are able to move in the same direction, because remember, if you have so many people in one place and there's nothing that is a guiding principle, there's nothing that has been put in place that charts the course of how people conduct themselves, how people relate, how people are able to engage with one another, how are people able to achieve one, two to three things. There has to be rules and regulations that help in governance. There has to be rules and regulations that help to put us in check. There has to be rules, policies. There has to be a structure through which we are able to function, and they are there to enable us to be able to bring out what is expected of us in the best way possible, even though we are existing in one place, or we are existing under a certain umbrella, or we are in a certain institution, or we are in a home. Wherever we find ourselves, anywhere that you are more than one, there will always be rules and regulations that are able to govern, that are able to make us to function independently, though collectively, towards the goals that have been put in place. That is why you see, to talk about obedience and just to remind ourselves, what is obedience? Why do we need to talk about obedience? Why do we need to check if we are obedient? It's because obedience does not operate within a vacuum. Obedience operates when we are able to have a set of rules and regulations. We have principles, we have policies, we have a structure in everywhere we find ourselves, and we have codes of conduct. So all those things fall under the same umbrella. There are rules, there are regulations that help us to be able to function and maximize our potential. But even as we are doing that, we are functioning within a certain context. That's why every organization, every nation, families, people, they put aside intentional rules that have been put in place, policies that are helping us to be able to govern ourselves, to be able to function in the way that is acceptable. So, obedience is basically something that is part of us. But you see, sometimes we overlook it and we don't pay attention to it. But it's something we do, although I think we sometimes practice disparity. For example, if you are in an institution or an organization, or you are employed somewhere, there's always code of conduct, and there are rules and regulations that are been put in place, and everybody is supposed to adhere to these rules, because they will make everybody be able to function and be able to operate in a teamwork and be able to pursue the same goal. You are moving, you are many, but you are moving towards one direction, because governance is there, leadership is there, structure is there. You are able to align yourself through it. So there is no vacuum. That's why I said when I was beginning, obedience does not operate in a vacuum. It always has to find a safe landing. It always has to find a safe landing. And a safe landing is those rules, is those regulations, is that code of conduct, is those values that you set in your home, is those principles that you apply to yourself as a person. They keep you in check. That's why they are important for us. They keep us in check. They help us to function better. They help us to be able to evaluate ourselves. They help us to examine, and they also help us to make to be better, to bring out the best. Remember, if you compare, I was thinking about this value system, and I was just smiling because I was looking at myself and I was saying, imagine uh, when you are like in employment, you will just notice if there's no rule and there's no law, there's no code of conduct, there's no structure, hey, everybody will be a mess, because everybody will try to do what they think is best for them. So what will happen? It will create a lot of confusion. It will bring a lot of conflict, because there's no clear pathway of what should be done, or who does what where, what is expected, what are the kind of things that I should be able to align myself with. That is how obedience is key in our lives as a person, obedience to me as a person, obedience to other people, obedience to the rule of law, obedience to policies and structures, obedience to authority. All these things, when we put them into practice, there's even obedience to God, by the way, who is supreme. And you will see, like in Exodus 20, the first commandment that God ever gave man, and he attached to it and he said, if you follow through this and this will be able to happen to you. There are repercussions, there are consequences of obeying or deciding not to obey. If you look at 1 Samuel 15:22, the Bible says it is better to obey than to sacrifice, because disobedience is so costly. Disobedience can cost you something that is of a lifetime. For example, if you break the rule of law, generally, if the system is working and we are able to apply the rule of law, the environment we live in, the society we live in, will be able to give us a safe landing. But you see, the challenge is sometimes there is law, but if you look at on the other scale, the level of obedience, and obedience is not partial. Obedience is not out of context, but it has been put together. That's why you see sometimes when lawyers speak, they quote like section this and that. It says this and that. They are always quoting, and they are using the Constitution as a reference point, because that is the rules and regulations have been put in to govern a nation, and the systems that are within that nation, and the people that are within that nation. So from a nation, it could be in a family setup. When someone violates this value, like now we are talking about building a value system. What happens when you have a value system as a family, and then maybe a child decides that they are going to violate the value system? What are the consequences that follow when you do not adhere to the value system? What when you do not adhere to the laws and the rules, the policies that govern an institution? Some people, you will see there was something they call summary dismissal. There is something they used to give people called show cause. Sometimes someone does something in a department and you hear they are summoned by the HR. It goes, maybe it follows the the protocols. Maybe it's your supervisor. Supervisor escalates it to the manager. The manager escalates it to the HR. Because those are policies. They are structures that have been put in place to ensure that certain code of conduct is being able to be adhered to. And peradventure, there's a violation, then the set protocols that are within the system are followed now to be able to check and to see, for such a thing like this, what are the repercussions, what are the consequences, and with those consequences, what is supposed to be happening. That is why you see there people will do something, they can be forgiven. Others will do something, they can be suspended. Others will do something, they will be a show cause will be demanded of them to show the cause why they should not be disciplined. Others will be served with warning, and even you see under the law you can get up to 3 warnings depending on what is it that is in being tackled. And others will just do something and you hear they've gotten a summary dismissal, case done, and that's it. So that is what we are trying to talk about. Those kind of things are normally put in place, but they become effective in the event of a violation of one rule or one regulation, or an omission of a certain code of conduct that was supposed to be adhered to, but somebody somewhere decided that they will overlook it or they will just disregard it, but they end up in problems. That's why we are talking about obedience. So obedience is key to us as a people in how we do things, how we live together, and how we can be able to own whatever it is that we are doing. If it's a vision, we are coexisting in it. If it is an environment, we are all together in it. But it makes many of us have functionality, are able to operate effectively, despite us being different in temperaments, being different in gender, being different in tribes, in nature, in the countries that we are in. But everywhere you go, you find that when you get there will be certain rules, and every one of us normally, when you're even going in a new area, most people, the first thing they consider, they always go and check what are the things that will be expected of me. How do these people get ABCD done? What is the law in the nation I'm going, in the city that I'm going? What governs them? What are the do's? What are the don'ts? What has been laid in place? We do that because we want to ensure we are not conflicting ourselves with where we get when we get there, and we are also not we will not be found in breach of conduct, because we know those things affect penalties, those things affect they bring consequences, and some of the consequences you may not have much to do, because even here in Kenya we normally say ignorant is not defense. So you cannot just arrive and say I didn't know, I've just arrived. No, it is expected that you should have common sense to be able to go ahead and find out what is expected of me as a person. What are my do's and don'ts? What is the code of conduct? For example, if you are in Kenya, we have traffic rules that are just specific for us as a country, how we function, what we do, and there are those traffic rules that are cutting across. But you find it funny that sometimes when we are home, it's easy to be familiar with the effects and the goings on of how things go on here. But when people go outside, like in first world countries, nobody tells them to obey the rules, the traffic rules. Even littering, the way people litter around, nobody tells them when they go there to be very careful. Meaning, we know these things, but because of how we have chosen not to be obedient to the set rules, because there's a broken system somewhere that is an enabler of misconduct, an enabler of you can get away with certain consequences. There's a way you can be able to escape. So you find sometimes people just become careless because there's a broken system somewhere, and they know very well that they can be able to get away with one, two, three things. But when you get to the places where they insist that the system must be working, and they look into it and you cannot escape, nobody tells people that this thing is not supposed to be. People are lying. They even put it in their mindset. They actually know it at the back of the mind, and they begin to practice immediately. So I find it like we need to begin to honor what we have. We need to uphold what we have with a lot of integrity, and we really need to value what we have. That is why I was talking about integrity, the rule of the law. You cannot be found wanting and then you want to say that you didn't know. The justice system will just say there's no ignorance is no defense. It has to be a personal mandate and a responsibility that you decide to take upon yourself to understand how things work. And I believe we can do it, because when you get a new job, you always want to know. The first question when you are taken in, even before people are taken in, like during the interview, when most people are asked, "What is there any question you have for us?" People always ask the panel questions, and they want to know what it involves to be in that particular setup, what is expected of them. They're asking even before they begin, why is it that we are careful when there's a price tagged to it? When it is a job and you're going to earn, so you're thinking that you will do whatever you need to do to be able to keep it. But what about the normal things or day-to-day life that makes us who we are, human beings? Why do we always draw a line that I will obey when I get to work, but when I get to a certain place I will not be able to obey? You see, there are things that we decide to treat it with partial amnesia, or act on one and turn a blind eye on another, which is not the right thing to do, because we need to make from wherever I am a better place. Once I make it a better place, the other person that is there with me will enjoy it, and this other person will always seek to make it better, and the other one and the other one. So it has a ripple effect, and you find that you start coexisting in an environment that is very friendly. You start existing in an environment that makes us to be able to function easily without having to worry so much. And that is why I feel like when we are obedient, we will be able to fix our broken systems, whether it is in the home. A broken system in the home is dysfunctionality. you know, we can be able to fix it in our institutions. For example, in our learning institutions, if we are able to pay attention to obedience, then we can be able to fix a lot of indiscipline. We can be able to tackle such things, because issues that are coming up, they come and find a certain process and a channel that is able to help everybody to function well. And everybody knows, if I do this, this is going to happen. And these are the consequences that are going to follow through. So you find that there's a lot we need to pay attention in terms of obedience, because it's going to keep us all out of trouble. It's going to make us avoid unnecessary strife. It's going to help us to just, functionality. For example, in school, there are rules and regulations that govern all stakeholders. And when I say all stakeholders, I mean there are rules and regulations that govern a stakeholder who is maybe, like the education system. It has governing rules and regulations. It has a code of conduct. It has got certain ethics. It has the ones that touch to the teachers, that are the facilitators. It has the ones that touch to the students, that are the participants. And it has the ones that touch to the parents, that are also stakeholders supporting what should be done in the schools. That is why you see I'm saying it is something that we need to pay attention to, because even from where I sit as a parent, if I know the rules and the regulations and the code of conduct, the expectations, what is are the do's and not the don'ts, as a parent I'll be able to enable the whatever that has been in place to function better. And I'm not only enabling it to function better as a parent from outside, but I'm also ensuring that my child as a student in this school, in this organization, is making it easier, better for all of them. And even the child themselves, they are partakers of their obedience, making it a better place. Because if one thing has to be done at certain time, everybody is trying to do it, Nobody is pushing you. Nobody is following you up. When we get a job, sometimes applications, long time people used to say in their application, I work under pressure. I can work without supervision. That is a workplace. You're already giving your own, you are talking about yourself and you're trying to woo the person that you are presenting yourself to sell yourself out in the best way possible. So you look at it and say, what are the kind of values, what are the kind of character traits the person may be looking for. So definitely you look at yourself and you say, if I say I can work without a supervision, hey, the person who is looking for someone, maybe they can be attracted, they can pay attention and say, look here, this is a person who's saying they can be able to deliver what is expected of them without anybody following them up, without anybody making demands. How about if we can be able to make our homes be a place whereby whatever that is right, what is supposed to be done begins from home. And that grace and that anointing begins to follow everybody in it. If you're going to work, you become a person who pays attention to rules and regulation. You become a person who is careful to practice whatever profession you are doing, that job you are doing, that business you're doing within the specified code of conduct, within the professional ethics that are expected of you as a person. That is why we have to start it from down, because anything that you've been doing from the time you are young, as you grow, it becomes part of you and you are not struggling with it. Being able to become a grown up adult, and now you want to practice your profession, you want to manifest in that career that you're doing, and you are entrusted to be able to deliver on a certain job, on a certain deal, on a certain contract, in a certain business. You are an entrepreneur that you are able to deliver. You can't just wake up one day and you are suddenly magically doing all these things without a struggle. When you have not inculcated it from your growing, from your young age, you find that you are the type that will be looking over your shoulder to see, is anybody watching what you are doing? Is anyone following up to see if you will deliver? Is someone there to be able to mark, did you come in on time? Did you leave on time? You see, these are things that we normally do unconsciously. Until nowadays, you find many organizations, they have decided to put up digital clock in and clock out. Why do they do that? It's because majority of people, when there's no system like that put in place to follow up, someone will just walk in and keep themselves busy, and they know very well they have violated the code of conduct. That is maybe how in terms of time management, there's a time years back where you used to visit dispensaries at specific times, because people used to, like for me when I was nursing those days years back, you used to time that you have to be there by 8:30 latest, because if you want your child to be given injection or checked, you would intentionally know once it is around 10:30, you will hear the nurses are breaking for maybe break tea. That break tea will go on until you start interceding, wondering how long was the tea break supposed to take. Then God forbid that you are waiting until they come back and they return maybe around 11:30 to quarter to 12. Serve very few people, suddenly they are going for lunch. And hey, if it's a Friday, God have mercy on you. If your date was on Friday, once it is after lunch, hey, you will wonder. You can, just one thing, a handful of people like this, you will waste your time there and nobody even has remorse that this person is nothing, maybe has other things to do. Nobody even used to pay attention to those kind of things. And that is why there was a lot of mushrooming of private clinics. That's how it came up. That is how it started. Because now you will just feel frustrated, and you are, if you are a little bit able, you will rather now go for antenatal and pay that 200, and you are able to be seen and go home and begin to do your own thing. Or maybe you are going and then returning the baby and going back to work. So these are the things that come to affect us as a society, but they do not start as a mountain, they start small. Then when they are not paid attention to and nobody is careful to check it and correct it, it begins to create that vacuum, and it brings in other things that are not supposed to be there. Right now, I don't know what is happening there. It's been many years. So what about when we used to want services from the government? A lot of people knew that you can go to an office. The fact that there's a coat on the chair does not mean the person is around. Does not even mean that you'll get the services you want. But that particular office is not in a vacuum. There is no organization operating in a vacuum. Everywhere, there are unwritten rules and laws, and there are also open code of conduct, professional ethics. There are all those rules and regulations that govern. But how much of it do I obey? How much of it do you obey? Let's say our traffic rules. How many obey that traffic rules? Why is it there's an avenue of a lot of bribes with the traffic sector? Everybody, sometimes you see they have striked, they are not doing again, they are not doing transport. Sometimes you find that there's a bit of frustration here and there. All of those broken systems, we directly or indirectly facilitate it. Yes, sometimes we help it to grow. And once it grows and it moves from becoming a seed, it germinates and it becomes a tree, you find to uproot it is very hard. Hey. So we really need to pay attention and see obedience is indeed better than sacrifice. Because when you obey and you are okay, even there's a boldness that comes. People who normally maybe know very well the law and they know they have not violated any, or peradventure they have violated, but they understand. When they are caught, most of them boldly say, I don't have bribe, I won't give it. If it's not something that can be dealt with now, let's go to court. But the shortcut the enemy has made us to see, it is easier for you to bribe, get away with it. Tomorrow you'll do the same thing. But you're the same person that is enabling this broken system by not obeying the set rules. When you cross the border and you go where the system is working and the rules are working, you will be able to obey the same thing. But this is our country. This is our nation. We are the people that should be able to make it better. So if I buy sugarcane on the road and I'm chewing and I'm throwing litter, or I decide I will take my garbage and throw it at a certain place and I really don't care. So who is that behavior or character going to affect? Am I going to be exempted when the consequences come? No. We will all be in it. But me, the same person who might be misbehaving like that, when I cross over to Rwanda, just an African nation like us, because there's a rule and a law, you cannot spit, you cannot throw a litter anywhere, you won't do it. Nobody will tell you. You will inform yourself. Why? If you cross there, you can't go with polythene. But here we will hide them and even dispose them carelessly. But this is our land. This is home. This is our environment. We are the stakeholders here. And God told the children, told Adam and Eve to tender the garden. Remember, wherever you are, that is your garden. You'll be part of destroying the environment. You are destroying the Garden of Eden. You will be liable for it. And before you are even liable, there are consequences that will come. There's a time it rained very badly. There's water everywhere. The entire Nairobi was soaked. Everybody started. We all started. This governor, we did Kanjo, we did all these things. But collectively, we have contributed. People who sell things, when they are told to sell, discard your garbage, rightly. Nobody cares. Whether you are selling, you dump it there, tomorrow you will come, someone must have removed for you, and you are doing it repeatedly. Seriously. We can't continue like that. We have to make where we are a better place for me and you. We must make our community a better place for us. And we just have to be obedient. Obedient to the rules that have been put in place. There are rules. It is just that people do not obey because there's no vacuum. Even in this country, there's a rule of law. People just choose to use their power, to use their money, to use whatever their position to get away with it. But it is in place. That's why I said obedience is something that is there, but we just choose not to. Even the word of God, Job 36:11 says, if you're obedient, if you serve me, you will spend your days in prosperity and your years in pleasures. That is God speaking to us. Read it, Job 36:11. If you read Isaiah 1:19, if you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. So what is the good of the land where you are? What is the good of the land where you are? If you are willing and obedient, those are two key words, willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. That's why he said, I will talk about this and I will talk about it with so much passion because of the how it affects us. If we are to do that over and over in the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, you might not be there, but you will have remnants. You have children that are there. You have grandchildren. You have siblings. You have the mere fact that there will be other human beings existing. What do we want to leave behind? What kind of environment? Yeah? We want fresh air, we want water, we want clean water, we want a clean environment, we want the roads working, we want the system working. It is not magic. We have to do the work. Obedience is part of the work because it's easier to cut corners, but it's harder for someone who wants to follow the process. We make it that way. When we go to look for simple services from the government, it becomes something that is just processing 1, 2, 3. Some people just decide to make the process tedious, very stressful, very depressing. Thank God today, nowadays, the passport is not such a big whatever. But before then, the system is there, but some people will decide to just make that system not to be effective, to frustrate whoever that needs the services so that you bend the rules and have your way. All of us are stakeholders. You are in that position. You are in that office. You are in that home. You are in that family. What is so hard if we are to effect these rules? If we teach obedience and we are able to practice from home, when the child will go to school and they find rules, they should be able to obey the rules. With all that is going on, with all the indisciplined cases, with all the conceiving of wickedness and all those things, we will have to reduce it because we will be enablers of the obedience. And once we are able to obey the whatever that is in place, we minimize disobedience. When we minimize disobedience, we level the consequences. We delete the circumstances that can warrant such things to be happening. You know, it baffles me how small children can just be so ungovernable. You know, I don't know about you. How can someone who is 12, 14, 15 be so ungovernable 16 years until they can conceive, plan, think, and kill fellow students? Do you know those? There are things that happen when you think your body clinches, you feel cold, you feel like, God, how did we get here? How did we get here? I mean, there were things we used to be in school, to do in school, but they were punishable, you know, like putting peroxide on your head in Nuela in a cat where you just shave the hair and you are punished, you know, misbehavior or maybe finding yourself with this and you are not supposed to carry it. You will uproot the tree, the root of the tree, or plant the entire farm, you know. But right now, how do you discipline someone who has killed, surely? And the life is already lost. How do they get here? How do we get here to conceive, plan, execute, and even be able to know the consequences of what you want to do, but all the same, you decide you're gonna do it, no matter how harmful it is? How did we get here? How did we get here? That a child can kill another child and they don't care over nothing that cannot be solved. Seriously, we really need to sit ourselves down, analyze, evaluate, sober up, and tell ourselves the truth. Let's go back to the basics. Let's build our value systems. These value systems, they appear like nonsensical. They appear like it's something that is very normal. Someone can look at it and say, what is she talking about? These are things that we normally do. But pay close attention to each one of them. Think about it. Look at life, analyze it. Critically look at the happenings. Look at the things that are befalling us. Look at how everything is going on. And you will see that we have broken an edge. There is a vacuum somewhere. The rain is beating us. Where did it start to beat us? What can we do? Because there's always something to be done. There's always a solution. But are we willing to walk the talk? Are we willing to have the talk? Are we willing to discuss it? Are we willing to be humble and say, we made a wrong decision here? Can we be able to go back to the drawing board and see what we can do to make it better? Not only because of us, but we have children coming behind us. We have grandchildren. We have an entire heritage. What are we going to say to God when we appear before Him? What are we going to answer? When nature comes back raging at us, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle it? May we keep thinking about it. And I pray that God will help us to do the right thing. God bless you. Have a good, fantastic time. See you in the next one.